They said she was just another face in the crowd, too broken to ever shine. But when Emma Rodriguez walked onto that stage, her voice didn't just silence the room. It made for judges rise to their feet and changed everything in a single, breathtaking moment. Emma Rodriguez had mastered the art of being invisible. In the bustling hallways of Jefferson High School in Birmingham, Alabama, she moved like a ghost, shoulders hunched, eyes downcast, trying desperately to blend into the background. At 18, she had already endured more heartbreak than most people face in a lifetime, and each scar had taught her the same lesson. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay safe. Her father, Miguel Rodriguez, had been her hero once, a talented musician who played guitar at local venues. He had filled their small apartment with melodies and dreams of making it big. Emma remembered sitting on his lap as a little girl, learning chord progressions and humming along to songs he'd written just for her. Music wasn't just in their house. It was their language, their bond, their everything. But addiction has a way of silencing even the most beautiful songs. By the time Emma turned 14, the guitar had been sold to pay for things she didn't want to understand. The man who once serenaded her to sleep was now a stranger who stumbled through their front door at odd hours, reeking of alcohol and broken promises. Her mother, Patricia, worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, her own dreams buried beneath the weight of survival. The night Miguel Rodriguez walked out for good, Emma found his old guitar pick tucked between the couch cushions. It was worn smooth from years of use, and as she held it in her trembling fingers, something inside her chest cracked open. That night, she made a promise to herself. She would never let music hurt her the way it had destroyed her father. But here's what Emma didn't know yet. Sometimes the very thing we run from becomes a thing that saves us. At school, Emma was a girl who ate lunch in the library, the one who sat in the back corner of every classroom, the one who had perfected the art of being present but not seen. The bullying had started when her father's problems became public knowledge. Ashley Thompson and her group of followers had latched onto Emma's pain like vultures circling wounded prey. "There goes Charity Case Emma," Ashley would announce whenever Emma walked past. "I heard her dad's a drunk who abandoned them. No wonder she's such a freak." The words landed like physical blows, each one driving Emma deeper into her shell. She stopped speaking unless directly questioned, stopped raising her hand even when she knew the answers, stopped believing that her voice mattered to anyone. But late at night, when the world was quiet and her mother was finally sleeping, Emma would sit by her window and sing softly to herself. She never wrote the songs down, never planned them. They just poured out of her like water from a broken dam. Songs about loss, about longing, about the ache of missing someone who was never really there. Her voice, untrained but raw with emotion, filled the empty spaces in her heart that her father had left behind. What Emma didn't realize was that Mrs. Patterson, her elderly neighbor, had been listening through the thin walls of their apartment complex for months. One evening, unable to contain herself any longer, Mrs. Patterson knocked on their door. "Honey," she said to Emma, tears in her eyes, "I've been blessed to hear angels sing in my 92 years on this earth. But what comes from your room at night, that's something else entirely. That's pure soul speaking." Emma's mother looked stunned. She had no idea her daughter had inherited anything musical from Miguel. Patricia had spent so long running from reminders of her ex-husband that she'd missed the gift growing in her own child. That conversation sparked something dangerous in Emma's chest. Hope, Mrs. Patterson, it turned out, had connections in the music world from her younger days as a piano teacher. She introduced Emma to Marcus Washington, a local vocal coach who ran a small studio downtown. Marcus had worked with several artists who'd made it big, and when he first heard Emma sing during her nervous audition, he went completely silent for 30 seconds. "Girl," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, "where have you been hiding that voice?" For the first time in years, Emma felt seen, truly seen, for something other than her pain. Marcus became the father figure Emma had always needed, patient and encouraging where Miguel had been chaotic and unreliable. He taught her proper breathing techniques, helped her understand her incredible range, and most importantly, showed her how to channel her pain into power through her music. But the real transformation began when Marcus suggested she audition for talent shows. Emma's immediate response was terror, absolute, paralyzing terror. The thought of standing in front of strangers, of being vulnerable and exposed, made her physically ill. "I can't," she whispered, shaking her head. "What if they laugh? What if they see right through me?" "Emma," Marcus said gently, "what if they don't? What if your voice is exactly what someone out there needs to hear?" The first audition was a disaster. Emma chose a local talent competition at the Birmingham Community Center, thinking the smaller venue would feel less intimidating. Instead, when she walked onto that stage and saw even 30 faces staring back at her, her voice locked up completely. She stood frozen at the microphone for what felt like an eternity before rushing off the stage in tears. Ashley Thompson, who had come specifically to watch Emma fail, made sure everyone at school heard about it by Monday morning. She just stood there like a deer in headlights, Ashley announced to anyone who would listen. I felt embarrassed for her. Some people just aren't meant to be performers. But here's where Emma's story takes an unexpected turn. Instead of giving up, those cruel words ignited something fierce inside her. She realized she had spent so many years letting other people's opinions define her worth that she'd forgotten her own voice mattered, literally and figuratively. Marcus helped her prepare for the next audition, this time for Alabama's Got Talent, a regional competition that fed into bigger opportunities. They worked on her stage presence, her confidence, and most importantly, on choosing the right song, one that told her story without saying a word about her past. The day of the Alabama audition, Emma's hands were shaking so violently she could barely hold a microphone. There were hundreds of contestants, many with years of professional training and polished performances. Emma felt like she was drowning in a sea of sequins and perfect teeth. But when her name was called, something miraculous happened. As she walked across that stage, she caught sight of her reflection in the monitors, and for the first time, she didn't see the broken girl from Birmingham. She saw someone with a story worth telling. Emma chose to sing an original song she'd written about her father, about forgiveness, about finding your voice in the silence. The moment she opened her mouth, the entire auditorium went dead quiet. Not the polite quiet of people being respectful, but the stunned silence of people witnessing something extraordinary. Her voice soared through space like it was meant to be there, carrying every ounce of pain and hope she'd accumulated over 18 years. Grown adults in the audience were crying. The judges sat transfixed, completely mesmerized by this unknown girl, who sang like she was healing the world one note at a time. When she finished, the silence stretched for what felt like minutes before erupting into thunderous applause. Emma won that competition unanimously, earning her a spot on the national stage. But the real shock came 6 months later, when Emma received a call that would change everything. She had been selected to audition for America's Got Talent, the biggest platform in the country for undiscovered talent. The night before leaving for New York City, Emma sat in her childhood bedroom, holding her father's old guitar pick. Patricia came in and sat beside her daughter on the bed. "I'm scared, Mom," Emma admitted. "What if I'm not good enough? What if this is all just a mistake?" Patricia, who had watched her daughter transform from a broken girl into a young woman with purpose, smiled through her tears. "Baby, you've already won. You found your voice again. Everything else is just a world catching up to what I've always known. You were born to shine." The flight to New York was Emma's first time leaving Alabama. As the plane descended toward JFK Airport and she saw the sprawling metropolis below, she felt like Dorothy seeing Oz for the first time. The city was overwhelming, electric, alive with possibilities she had never dared to imagine. Backstage at the America's Got Talent Theater, Emma was surrounded by performers who seemed born for this moment. Professional singers with years of training, dancers with perfect technique, musicians with expensive instruments and polished acts. Once again, Emma felt like she didn't belong. The waiting was agony. She watched on monitors as contestant after contestant took the stage, some earning standing ovations, others getting buzzed off before finishing their performances. The judges seemed particularly harsh that day, and Emma's confidence began to crumble with each passing act. When her name was finally called, Emma's legs felt like they might give out. The walk from the wings to center stage felt like it took forever, every step echoing in the massive theater. The audience was enormous. Thousands of people stretching back into darkness, their faces barely visible under the bright lights. Judge Simon Cowell looked skeptical as Emma approached the microphone. The other judges, Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel, wore polite but non-committal expressions. Emma had watched enough episodes to know that look. They were already preparing to say no. "What's your name, and where are you from?" Simon asked. "I'm Emma Rodriguez from Birmingham, Alabama," she replied, her voice barely audible through the microphone. "And what are you going to do for us today, Emma?" "I'm going to sing an original song." There was a slight eye roll from Simon. Original songs rarely worked on the show. Audiences preferred familiar tunes they could sing along with. "All right then," Simon said with a wave of his hand. "Let's see what you've got." The music began, a simple piano arrangement that Marcus had helped her create. Emma closed her eyes and transported herself back to her bedroom window, back to those nights when music was her only companion, her only solace. She began to sing about the journey from darkness to light, about finding strength in broken places, about the courage it takes to stand up after the world has knocked you down repeatedly. Her voice started soft, almost fragile, but as the song built, so did her power. The theater began to transform. Conversations in the audience stopped mid-sentence. People pulled out their phones not to scroll through social media, but to capture this moment. The judges leaned forward in their chairs, their skeptical expressions melting into something resembling awe. By the time Emma reached the climax of her song, her voice was soaring through the theater like a force of nature. She was no longer the scared girl from Birmingham. She was a storyteller, a healer, a voice for everyone who had ever felt invisible or broken or forgotten. The final note hung in the air for a moment that felt suspended in time. Then the theater exploded. Every person in that audience rose to their feet as one, applauding and cheering like they had witnessed something sacred. But Emma was looking at the judges, and what she saw there made her heart stop. All 4 judges were standing, tears streaming down their faces. Heidi had her hands pressed to her heart. Sophia was openly sobbing. Howie was shaking his head in disbelief. And Simon Cowell, the man known for his harsh criticism and impossible standards, was walking towards something Emma hadn't noticed before, a golden buzzer. "Emma," Simon said, his voice thick with emotion. "In 20 years of judging talent shows, I have never heard anything like what just happened on this stage. You didn't just sing a song. You told us who you are, and in doing so, you reminded us who we are." His hand hovered over the golden buzzer. "There are voices that entertain, and there are voices that heal. Yours, Emma Rodriguez, is one that heals." The golden confetti rained down like a miracle, covering Emma in sparkles and dreams come true. The audience was on its feet, cheering so loudly that the theater shook. Emma stood in the center of it all, tears of joy mixing with the golden paper falling around her, finally understanding what it meant to be seen, to be heard, to matter. Marcus Washington, watching from the audience, wept like a proud father. Patricia Rodriguez, watching from their small apartment in Birmingham, collapsed onto the couch in joyful sobs. Mrs. Patterson, now 93, clapped her hands together and whispered, "I told you so, baby. I told you so." But perhaps the most powerful moment came later, when Emma was asked by a reporter what this experience meant to her. "For years, I thought my voice didn't matter because no one had taught me how valuable silence can be when it's chosen, not forced upon you. I thought being quiet meant being weak. But sometimes you have to lose your voice to realize how powerful it really is." Every person who ever felt invisible, every kid who eats lunch alone, every daughter of broken dreams. This golden buzzer isn't just mine. It belongs to all of us. That night, Emma called her father for the first time in 4 years. Miguel Rodriguez was 3 years sober, working as a counselor at a rehab facility, and when he heard his daughter's voice on the phone, he broke down completely. "Emma, baby, I saw you on television. I saw what you became despite everything I put you through. I'm so sorry and I'm so proud. You found your voice and somehow you helped me find mine too." Emma's story didn't end with the golden buzzer. It began there. She went on to win America's Got Talent that season, using her platform to advocate for children in broken homes and to fund music programs in underprivileged schools. She established the Silent Voices Foundation, providing scholarships and mentorship for young people who, like her, felt invisible. But the real victory wasn't the fame or the record deals or the standing ovations. It was the moment Emma realized that every painful experience, every cruel word, every night spent feeling forgotten had been preparing her for something bigger than she ever imagined. Your voice matters, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. Especially then, the very thing that breaks you might be the same thing that makes you unbreakable. Sometimes you have to lose yourself completely to discover who you were always meant to become. Emma Rodriguez went from invisible to unforgettable, not by changing who she was, but by finally having the courage to let the world see her truly. And in her reflection, millions of others found the courage to step into their own light. The girl who once hid in shadows now stands as proof that even the quietest voices, when finally set free, can move mountains and heal hearts and change the world one song at a time.